Review aggregator site Rotten Tomatoes reported that 26% out of 141 reviews gave this film a positive review, with an average rating of 4.4 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads that even though Oscar bearers Nicolas Cage, Angelina Jolie, Robert Duvall all came aboard for this project, the quality is disappointingly low and the plotline is nonsensical, and even the promised car chase scenes are boring. This, of course, is taken from the Wikipedia page of 2000 blockbuster film Gone in 60 Seconds. But we are here to offer 2025's far better alternative, Gone in 30 Seconds, which is, of course, the story of Dylan Easton lobbing David Mitchell and putting Barry Robson's Raith Rovers into a swift lead on Saturday. Last season, the Rovers had to wait until the 20th of December to register a win on the road. This time, they had secured it in less than a minute. Welcome back, of course, to the Oh No 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 podcast. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir. Now I'm about to throw out a slew of Nicolas Cage-related questions to y'all. Scott, how would you react to your flights being hijacked by fellow convicts, and how are you doing this evening?
I don't know, to be honest, to answer that one, but I'm doing all right though. Yeah, much better after getting a win on the road, like you say, and it's good to be able to actually get one right away as well, and it's against a team that we couldn't beat down there last season, so it's good to knock kind of all of that to the side, and we can start looking ahead to the Dunfermline game afterwards as well.
We're, of course, joined by, he's not sitting at a point of view of Nick McAllister, of course, up in the New York skyline of Spider-Man, but Allan Douglas-Munn. Allan, has anyone ever used plastic surgery to switch your face with theirs with horrific consequences?
Well, there'd be horrific consequences for them if they ended up with my face, I suppose. So, no. Funnily enough, they haven't. And hopefully they never do. I imagine that'd be quite inconvenient with mobile phone technology now. With face scans and stuff. It'd be right bugger if you couldn't get in your bank account or anything like that. So,
just rocking up at IFA client meetings and just not a clue what's going on. And then, of course, we've got Blair Hopcroft. Blair, if you were left with Sean Connery to secure missiles with nerve gas on Alcatraz, would you fancy a higher success rate than going 4-6-0 down at Somerset Park?
I would, and I have to say, 3 great movies. I'm well on board with all 3 of them. I absolutely would.
Well, let's head on to Saturday's game, of course, and we'll have a chat about it. We will talk about the cooperation agreement stuff later down the line because we're reserving it for Duncan. We're, the Tiger Cage, we're bringing it back, but for podcasters. So I'm not sure Duncan would ever term himself as a podcaster, to be fair. It doesn't seem his style. But yeah, Scott, what did you make of the switch from Barry Robson? Of the way that we line up, Josh Ray's in goals. We've got the same back line in the sense of Hanlon, Fordyce and Doherty all in there. Stevenson starts, but then Josh Mullen comes in at wing back, and then you've got the 3 of them. You have the holy trinity of Brown, Matthews and Byrne in the middle. No recognised strikers because we're playing Paul McMullen and Dylan Easton up top. What did you make of that?
My honest reaction was probably similar to what I've seen a lot of people on social media when it came to 2 o'clock was, did they only... I was counting at first, did they only name 10 players on the team sheet? Because I was like, there has to be one of them playing up front. And then it was just like, oh no, he's actually no. And then I'm like, well, he's going to be playing, I guess, McMullen as like a false 9, because I was like, you can't really see Easton playing like up top, but he ended up being the 2 of them kind of taking turns, and even Ross Matthews is pushing up into like a false 9 to be the guy that's going to be pressing their defence. But I was a bit confused, and I'd imagine Ayr United and Scott Brown would have been confused at the lineup as well when it came to 2 o'clock, because I don't think anybody in that stadium, apart from the players and the management staff, would have known that was going to be anywhere near the team. It was good to see, obviously, Sean Byrne back. I mean, everybody's been howling about that for weeks and weeks, so good to get him in there. And I mentioned it in the pre-match podcast last week that I would have dropped J Rowe, but I would have dropped it to move to a back four. He dropped J Rowe and put Josh Mullen in. So yeah, Robson found another way to change that basically, but it worked, and I thought that Josh Mullen had a really good game. So no, as I say, the whole no recognised number 9 did baffle me to begin with, but yeah, I can't complain in the end.
And Blair, you made the trip down on Saturday to Somerset Park. Barry Robson, in his post-match interview, which I'm going to guess you probably not watched, makes reference to sort of the flexibility of the midfield, having the engine-type players that are Scott Brown and Ross Matthews in there.
I actually did watch it this week. But yeah, it was, as Scott said, the team lineup came out and it was everybody just kind of scratching their head and trying to figure out what they're doing, if it was a 4-5-1 or what kind of formation we were playing. But Robson deserves a hell of a lot of credit. He got every engine in every area that he needed it to be in. It just worked. Like there's just no two ways about it. And I kind of said this before as well. Like I feel like he gets a lot of stick for quite rightly, to be fair. And I did say this before as well. He quite rightly gets a lot of stick for some of the stuff that he does. But I like the fact that he has a plan, and that the plan might not always work. You might not always get exactly out of it what he wants to get out of it, but I feel like sometimes under Murray in particular, and we never quite knew what he was trying to do. Like, never felt like we had much of an identity. We did start to kind of get that under Collins, that kind of breaking out from the back and kind of a counter-attacking side looked like it might become what we are. But I feel like with Robson, you kind of know what you're going to get. And he's got the ability to change it, but the overall picture basically remains the same, which is he's going to have boys out there that are going to work really hard. And they're going to kind of try and take advantage of turnovers and possession and stuff. So I think he deserves a hell of a lot of credit. I think he... And to be fair to him as well, he mentioned it in the post-match. I mean, Allan was there as well, but I don't know if it was just me. First half, I didn't really notice the wind. But second half...
No.
Like it was blowing a hoolie. You couldn't really tell because we were obviously in the normal behind the goals, the sort of away end, but the wind was kind of coming from behind us straight down the pitch. But obviously we're sheltered by the stand, so you kind of didn't really notice anything. But like the bottom corner flags were doing their dinger. So I think it was more of a factor actually in the game than what we realised until the second half.
I'd watched it on the Ayr TV, and you could tell instantly either the cameraman's got the shakes or it's very windy, because it was a little bit better in the second half for some reason, but in the first half, like it was the guy was clearly holding on to the camera tight to keep it as still as possible, but you could tell that it was blowing a gale, and as you say, when you're looking at the corner flags as well, it was going mental. But it also, I think, with Josh Ray's kicks, it was mental how long he was getting with his kicks, and I was like, well, it has to be very strong because no goalie just reaches box to box every time.
No, totally.
Blair, to go back to what you mentioned, you've said about Barry Robson's style, and I feel like you can really tell with the way that he looks for personnel and the way that he's playing that hard work's a non-negotiable for him. Like it's so much of a requirement, and you could really see that with the way that the game ended up turning out, but we'll obviously cover that later on. Allan, Josh Mullen makes a start as a wing back. He's not really done anything wrong as such there, so should maybe people be a little bit less surprised by him starting in that position? What were your thoughts on things? And just as well, just talk us through like your viewpoint in terms of the weather conditions as well, because again, as Blair rightfully says, those at the ground will probably be able to tell you about their experiences, but it's called out by both managers too.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Mullen playing it right wing back, you probably think when we sign a new one that maybe that's the end of it, but it's bizarre to say because he is naturally a midfielder and J Rowe is naturally a right wing back, but he's actually probably more defensive than J Rowe in terms of he doesn't quite bomb us forward. He doesn't spend as much of his time in the front third, the final third of the pitch. So it kind of, I can see why Robson's done it, and why the stats have been shown in the past about how much running and how much work Josh Mullin does, and so we were always going to need that against a decent Ayr team. Despite having a few players out, that's still a pretty strong Championship team. So we needed that kind of thing in there. So overall, it wasn't too much of a surprise. As I mentioned to Blair before the kickoff, actually, if we're all having conversations on the terrace and trying to figure out what the formation is and what the system's going to be, Scott Brown's got no chance. So fair play. That's 1-0 to Barry Robson in the old tactical battle with the former Celtic midfielders there, which is good to see. In terms of the weather, as Blair said, didn't really notice it first. I don't remember it being particularly bad on the water park and the kind of gravelly car park in the middle of the grass field across from the race course. It's about a 5-minute walk away, and I don't remember it being particularly windy on the walk from there to the stadium. So it must have kind of really. I suppose it's a coastal town, so the wind can pick up pretty quickly with the change in the tide and that kind of thing. So, it would have come in probably during the first half, because you didn't really notice it other than Josh Ray's kicking being a bit more powerful than normal. But it didn't seem to be too much of a hindrance to. It's quite funny that I'm going to say this, but it didn't seem to be too much of a hindrance to David Mitchell as much as in just being pish is. So, you didn't really notice, but it was second half. It must have picked up in the second half, because it definitely seemed more of an issue. Josh Ray couldn't get the ball to the halfway line when he was kicking it. There was a lot of those kind of things, and it was almost like going up in the air and just falling straight down. It was that strong in the second half.
And Scott, to deviate slightly, to take it back to the lineups, but to focus on Ayr, which, we don't usually tend to talk about opposition in their lineups, but for Ayr, Dom Thomas and Curtis Main both dropped to the bench, and then Jamie Murphy, who scored the goal against Arbroath last week, he misses out completely. Did that give you a degree of confidence? Particularly, I know that you've got a friend over in Holland who'll be talking to about these sorts of things. What was your thoughts when you saw that lineup?
It's funny you mentioned that. My mate Matt, who I actually went up to his to watch the game with him, and at 2:00 instantly the first question is actually the same question that we've been kind of laughing about with Ayr fans for the last few weeks, how they're questioning a lot of the lineup choices that Scott Brown's went with, especially in the Premier Sports Cup game against St Mirren. They were all giving him dog's abuse for that sort of lineup. But my mate Matt was like, how the hell's Dom Thomas not playing? What's he done now? Questioning what on earth is going on and what's going wrong to be dropping somebody like that, and you've probably brought him in to be one of your star players, but at the same time, I don't see why he's been dropped, but obviously we don't see what's been going on in training and stuff like that, so Scott Brown must have thought he would be more of an impact sub for that game. Curtis Main, I'm not too surprised with, because, I think a lot of Ayr fans have been pretty disappointed with how he's been, and I'm kind of glad that because I'm pretty sure there was rumours that we were in for him in January.
This guy was citing him as a potential signing.
Yeah, well, it was apparently rumours potentially coming on loan or whatever, but that Dundee were wanting basically all his wages paid, and he was on a decent wage, so we kind of just stepped away at that point, and Ayr went, well, we're splashing cash about, so we'll go for it, and then gave him an 18-month deal. So it's clearly not worked as well as they thought. And then Jamie Murphy's a funny one, because any time that I've seen him play against us, I've never thought that he's been ripping up trees or that he's been really good or anything like that, but he scored the goal for them, which got them their point last week, and he seems to chip in every now and again when he is. But the problem, and I said this to my mate Matt when they signed, because they signed Jamie Murphy and Aidan McGeady that same summer when they both came in. I said to him, it's all fine and well signing names like that, but how many games are you going to get out of them? It's like Ross
Yeah.
County this signing this
Gary
season
Mackay
signing
Stephen.
Gary Mackay-Steven. Like, how many? What, you going to get 10 games out of him? Because like he's not played 10 games in the last 2 years.
Because they had the same issue with Devlin as well last season. They brought him in, but they couldn't get him fit consistently enough, even though he's an excellent centre back. It was just that question.
Exactly.
I was disappointed that Maine wasn't playing, to be honest, after watching him against Arbroath. Or not really watching him against Arbroath, because he was completely anonymous, and how he stayed on the pitch as long as he did, I don't know. But yeah, I was disappointed he wasn't playing. Not so bothered. Quite happy to see Thomas on the bench. Surprising that one, really, given, like, you know, they do play with wide players. Jamie Murphy's been a dangerous player for them. He's out injured. Why not then play? I mean, I know they played the guy that's supposed to be like this kind of superstar in the making, Marco Roos. Yeah.
Well, we'll come on and talk about the performance overall across it. But Blair, I mean, the moment of magic happens and it only takes 35 seconds. You want to talk us through the first 35 seconds of this football match?
Well, it was tremendous. I mean, obviously, the best bit that I hadn't even remembered until I watched the highlights, they had kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 30 odd seconds, and that involves us winning the ball back. I mean, to be fair to Mitchell, he tries to give the ball away before it and doesn't quite manage. And it comes back to him, and then he just shanks it straight to Dylan Easton. But, I mean, hats off to Dylan, because I honestly think any player in that kind of position of the park, those kind of attacking players, they'll all try that. And from that kind of distance, you're good chance of getting it on target, but it's definitely not a guarantee. And it's just the deftest of kind of dinks over the top of him. And it's like, as a football fan as well, watching it, the fact the keeper makes an attempt just makes it look all the sweeter. Like, it's, you know, he's not like a proper lob over the top of him. He's got no chance. He's kind of just lifted it just high enough that the keeper thinks he can get to it. And it drops in, and you couldn't ask for better. I mean, it's literally like, I think Robson said so in his interview, it's like a complete flip from the game last season when he took over. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being 1-0 down after a couple of minutes, we're 1-0 up. And to be fair, I still think for the next 15-20 minutes, I thought we really looked dangerous, actually. We looked like we were pretty nailed on to maybe get a second, and then they started to come into it. But tremendous goal. I think you mentioned it on Twitter as well, Robbie, like home fans still coming in. In fact, actually, the young team as well weren't even in the ground yet. They missed it. Like, still filing into the ground. And just glorious. Really, really, really good for Dylan Easton.
A lot of
really shit for David Mitchell.
Well, both are true. A lot of Ayr fans commenting that their preference is to watch the game up the end that they're playing naturally. So I'd imagine there is still a few coming in, but that's by the by. They're still on the move, and they're probably just hearing a scream from the away end in delight.
They swapped ends as well. I don't know. I don't know if it was us or them, but whoever won the toss swapped ends, because they did line up the opposite way round to kick off.
Yeah.
Until the toss. So again, I don't know if that was Scott Brown or not, but hats off if it was, and even funnier if it wasn't.
Well, if it wasn't, you would think that there's probably a rationale for them shooting into their own fans in the second half, having that sort of that bank terrace and at the top end. A bit of praise as well for Ross Matthews with this one, because he's very, very quick on to sort of harass Mitchell to put the panic on. And it's just Kyle Ewers. He's one of the inexperienced lads from Celtic, and I think he's the guy that picks up the ball and plays it back to Mitchell. And Mitchell could maybe filter it off to the side, but it's just such quick thinking and such quick feet from Dylan Easton to get the ball away. Allan, the best possible start for us, but also as well good to force a team's game plan completely out the window from the first minute. Queen's Park kind of probably did it to us last week, where we had to sort of figure out a way to break them down and get an equaliser, and then we go and do the same thing to Ayr. What were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You're facing a team who, on paper, have no strikers on. So you're already thinking, right, they're probably going to set up fairly defensively, look to hit us on the counter. If you then give them a 1-0 start after 30 seconds, it's like, well, we don't have to come out and have a go at them and give them a chance to get in behind us. As Blair said, though, we kind of did. We did, Ayr, I'd argue for the whole of the first half, they never really looked like trouble in us. They got forward a bit and there was a couple of decent balls into the box, but we were never really in that much danger. And, we had a good chance. So I think it's almost like we've forced them to try and kind of come out and attack a bit more, and they just didn't do it that well. I mean, a lot of Ayr fans are talking about somehow Ben Dempsey's turned into prime Zidane or something, that he makes that much difference to their midfield. I am saying that tongue-in-cheek for any Ayr fans that want to clip this. The guy's a good player in the Championship, there's no doubt about it. I don't think your team shouldn't look that poor without him in it, though. You need to have more in there with him. And they just had nothing in the midfield. They had no answer to our midfield three. None at all.
Nothing.
And it's great to be saying that, because how many times have we said that our midfield two had no answer to an opposition team? So it's really good to be saying that. And yeah, as you say, Plan A went out the window for them very quickly. And I would say there are still question marks over whether the other Scott Brown has a plan B and a plan C, and whether he can change a game if it's not going the way he wants it to. And I think, to be fair, it's Ayr fans that are asking that question rather than me. I don't really care.
Yeah, I'm happy for it to continue on if that is the case. And Scott, is there anything else from you to talk about the goal? I mean, Dylan Easton, he's on 6 games, 7 goals so far this season. Pretty remarkable start from him.
Yeah, he's just basically left off where he finished last season. I mean, I think this season I was kind of going into it thinking, right, we might not be so reliant on Easton to score goals with the likes of Vonnie back, Jack Hamilton back fit again. We'll hopefully get Callum Smith back in the next few weeks by the sounds of things as well. So you start to think, right, we've got more sort of artillery there to start scoring goals, but at the same time, Dylan Easton's still popping up and scoring, whether it's a penalty, free kick, or open play, sort of special goals. You never know one, because he is a bag of tricks. So, I also think when I think about even who was in that team, see if that ball had fallen at any of the 3 midfielders, I don't think any of them are shooting. One of them's maybe looking for Easton straight away, or for somebody else that can maybe have a pop, but I don't think
Bruni would shoot. I think Bruni would shoot. I don't know about the other two.
Maybe. Definitely the other two, I don't see having a pop there. So fair play for Easton, just even one look and just going, right, I'm having a pop here. And
the only other player in their squad who 100% shoots there is Lewis Vaughan. Yeah, and also has the ability to finish it as well. The other kind of point on Easton is, see all of those people who are on Twitter and on Pie and Bovril saying, if we've been offered 6 figures for Easton, we should be taking it. He's 31, he's got a year in his contract. And so far this season, he has already shown why that is complete and utter nonsense. He's shown why they were never going to offer us enough money to make it worthwhile getting rid of him. Never.
Yeah. And a huge performance again across the piece. I think it was probably, relatively speaking, it was maybe a quieter afternoon in terms of performance from Dylan Easton, I would say himself, when you look at the piece overall. But it does the damage in the 30 seconds. What more do you need to do? Like, if you score, that's it. It's kind of like a full stop on a sentence, and you can
it's
just.
Why you have a guy like him in the team, because he only needs one moment to have a bit of magic and turn the game.
To be fair, he also, without having, I mean, obviously he done his part in terms of work ethic and stuff like that. Is that something else that Dylan? I think we've mentioned this before, especially when Barry Robson came in. I didn't fear for Dylan Easton because I thought, well, he's good enough to be in the team. But you wondered how the hell he was going to be playing in this team, because it just wasn't the way that he played football. You thought, well, Dylan Easton gets guys running about him, winning the ball, and then they give it to Dylan. Whereas we've already seen that Sean Burns had to wait a long time to get into the team, and he's a very technical player. But at the same time, apparently he doesn't do a lot of running, and that was kind of the reason why he's been left out of the team. Whereas Dylan Easton, to begin with, there was, I would say, the first 18 months especially, I don't think you ever really seen Dylan tracking back. But now he has to, otherwise he's not going to be in the team. And he's done exactly what Robson wants and kept scoring.
It's with the squad, I feel like Barry Robson's got a way of always finding a player that can be a focal point. Now, naturally, that's always going to be the case with a guy like Dylan Easton in your team, that you can use him, you can build your team around him. I mean, Barry Robson's time at Clyde, that's basically what he tried to do. He said, I brought in Dylan Easton and I tried to do that, but then he injured himself or Barry Ferguson even, his time at Clyde. Not like us on this podcast, we get names wrong. But yeah, over the piece, just really, really assured so far. You've seen it last season with Finlay Pollock emerging, being a centre forward. And I'm not sure I would quite go the same league with Dylan Easton, but you can have that player that does get you your goals, and it takes a strain off the rest of the team. Maybe if you do have someone like, a lot of people have looked at Paul McMullen coming in and sort of says, oh, that's great, but he doesn't score goals. Well, if you've got someone else doing the damage on the other end of it and he's buzzing about causing chaos, then it's kind of by the by. Blair, you mentioned earlier on, the game really settled into a rhythm after we did score. Ayr really struggling to break down that back three. Naturally, we know the result. It was a clean sheet for them. Really positive performance across the piece from the trio at the back and the two wing backs.
Yeah, it genuinely was, but I think the honest thing is, and I think that very much is a Barry Robson thing, the entire team contributed to that. There was so many times where the midfield broke the play down, and it never really got as far as the back three. I mean, there was once or twice, I think, Doherty got away with it, or I say got away with it. There's a couple of times he took a man on, like went to clear it, the guys kind of jumped, and then he's dinked it round him and kept going and played out for the back, and then he got caught on one of them kind of thing. But I quite like the way that they're still trying to play football. They kind of play out as much as they can. I don't know if that's why we didn't notice the wind quite so much. It wasn't a game where the ball was getting lumped back and forward. It was pretty much played on the deck for the most part, which was pretty good. I just think that, like, as good as we were, and as solid as we were, and we were, I mean, I think it was Scott mentioned Josh Mullen already. Josh was, I thought he was incredible. Honestly, I thought he was absolutely superb on Saturday. He did everything that was asked of him. Allan's right, he is more defensive than J-Ro. I don't know how. I don't know if it's just more disciplined. I don't know if he just holds his place better. I don't know what it is. But we just looked really comfortable, certainly in the first half. Even when they came into it, last 15 minutes or so of the first half, they were definitely on top. They were starting to come out and they were starting to push. But, I mean, we limited them to kind of a bobbler through to the goalie for a shot that was next to nothing from them. And I was chatting to the boys that I was down with as well, and we were talking about, and I know we'll cover it in more detail later, but the co-op agreement thing and how different a place. I know Ayr are kind of ravaged with injury, but we're talking about bringing in potentially a couple of young boys for Rangers to bolster the squad and to potentially go on the bench. I'm not looking at that co-op agreement and going, right, we're going to get a centre forward that's going to start every week. We're going to get a winger that's going to start every week. It feels like it's about building a squad and kind of padding it out slightly. 2 young boys for Celtic, straight in the starting 11 for Ayr. Do you know what I mean? And it's, I'll be honest, they look good on the ball and stuff, but there was a couple of times they're just getting shrugged off it. Yeah. Like, in much the same way I would argue that Richard Chin is in the second half a couple of times. That young, no quite physical enough, no quite got the kind of physicality and the grit about them. They were just getting kind of, I wouldn't even say bullied. They were just getting shrugged about. Like, there was no real kind of threat in that first half. But I just, not enough good things to say about Josh Mullen, though. Genuinely a really, really good 90 minutes film. And by the way, goes very close in the first half with that sort of the volley, half volley or whatever. Like, it was a really good save for Mitchell, actually, to be fair. He was unlucky.
Mullen seems to also be changing the perception of him, I think. Basically under Barry Robson, I think he has. There's a lot of fans who I know who were giving him quite a lot of stick. I think it was because we signed him as a sort of wide player. who we thought, right, he's going to get down the line. We knew he was a great crosser of the ball. He still is a good crosser, hence why he's on set pieces a lot of the time when he's on the park. But I think we thought we were going to get a bit more attacking sort of output from him when we signed him, but we've not. But Barry Robson's found a role for him whenever he has played. It seems to be in that wing back role, and he seems to be adapting better to it game by game. But I definitely think that you're seeing a lot more people now actually understanding that he's got this sort of role in the team, and they're not going, oh Christ, Josh Mullen's playing at right wing back anymore. We're kind of past that now, I think. So
he's been one of those guys. He's been an easy target for people. I remember the Falkirk game when we beat them 3-1 last season. Always nice to talk about that. And there was one guy in particular who just wouldn't stop screaming about get Mullen off, get Gibson on. But it's just, and you'd feel just shut up, mate, and get behind him. Like, you know what? Anything he does wrong, he's not doing it deliberately. He's working his ass off. Give him a break. And it might be because he had a great game. It might be because I was standing next to the young team and the drum was going the whole time, so I couldn't really hear anything. But I didn't hear anyone say anything negative about him at all on Saturday.
No, definitely.
Deserves so much praise in terms of the effort that he's putting in. I think he's just evolving as a player. I don't think it's like a step back from being a winger into being a full-back. Like sometimes you see that with like centre midfielders getting chucked in at right back. Don't think that's the case at all. He's putting in the numbers, as we know for things like running, and he does still get forward in that position. It's not like a hindrance to him. He's not getting dragged out of place.
He's a Robson player too. He works so hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
And actually, it was probably I know, different stage of the career, complete opposite point to make, but Dylan Wattrick for Ayr won man of the match in terms of the sponsors. I thought he had a very ropey performance. Again, there's quite a few players that stood out in the games down at Somerset last season, and they just didn't look the same. George Oakley as well, he had a very frustrating afternoon, because in the end, like if they were trying to play it on the deck through our midfield, we were winning it in transition phases, so like they would get the ball, we would nick it off them, and then we would just be right back down the park. And you saw the ball get turned over in midfield so often, which was great to watch.
Without wanting to turn it into an Ayr podcast, actually, funnily enough, if you take away the goal, I actually think Mitchell was probably their best player. He had two really, really good saves, and he was relatively solid with the ball. They gave him some pretty testing back passes, and he did okay. He had a couple of ropey moments, but I didn't think anyone else stood out. So I actually, take the goal away, and he probably would have been their man of the match.
Well, Scott, just to bring it back into a Rover-centric point of view, we don't want to get Somerset Bob too excited down there. This is going to be the second...
Thanks for the birthday shout for the wee man, by the way, Bob. Cheers.
This is going to be the second podcast on Thursday as well. He'll get a reference on that because we've already recorded it. Scott, Paul McMullen wins a free kick. Dylan Easton cannons one off the bar, and then you've got that Josh Mullen chance. So did you think it was like Ayr, for all their sort of... When they were getting on the ball, they weren't really doing too much of it. When Rovers were getting on the ball, they were doing occasional things with it. Was that giving you a degree of optimism that we might get a second there?
Aye, I think by this point, I'd figured out that it was very windy, and I was just like, it was pretty much like, can we get a second to get that cushion? Because I was like, if we're going to be up against this in the second half, you know what's coming our way when they've got likes at Oakley. They might bring on Main in the second half. Dom Thomas is still to come on and can fling crosses into the box and like curve long-range efforts. So you're like, we kind of want more than a goal to just feel that bit more confident going into a half where we're probably going to be up against it. But no, I genuinely, from the angle I've got on the Ayr TV cameras, I couldn't tell if the Easton one was going in, but it looked like some hit, and then it came... At first I thought Mitchell had saved it. I went, that's some save, but then when they had the instant replays on it, and you could see it came off the post, but so he was unlucky with that. And then Josh Mullen also extremely unlucky with his effort. Again, Mitchell does actually save that one, and you're just like, we are knocking on the door here, but even if we do... You're just, with George Oakley at the other end, we've seen what he's done to us before down there, so it's just like we've got to constantly be watching him. Even though we've got a back three, the back three have to be patrolling him perfectly. Otherwise, he will get a chance. He did obviously get 2 chances, basically, in the second half. But no, I think we definitely... I don't know if bossed the first half is too much, but we were definitely in control of that first half.
I'd say it would be fair to say that we were playing to our own strengths, and that we used that to really... Yeah, I do think that to a degree we did bully them. I think they just looked a bit naive, and it was really telling that they didn't have the likes of Stuart Bannigan in their team. I think that would have maybe made a big difference for Ayr, in terms of how the game might have gone if they had someone with his sort of tactical nous and just being able to get about the pitch, even though he might be like not the quickest player by any stretch of the imagination, but he'll put in tackles and disrupt in your midfield. There was a vague penalty shout. Sean Byrne got clipped in the box. Ayr United TV were actually suggesting that they thought it might be. Blair, what was your perspective from the ground, and when you watch it back, are you just... I can see you shaking your head already. Do you think they got that one wrong?
Yeah, no, not a chance. I love Sean Byrne, and I love how he's one of these... I wouldn't say dirty players, because he's not, but he's physical and he likes mixing it up, and he loves a tackle, and he kind of carries himself as a bit of a hard man, and he loves to throw himself at the ground as well. It's so good. He's one of the best players we've got for the, like contact incoming. I'm just going to pick my 2 feet together and I'm going to fall over. And he does. But to be fair to him, he gets himself straight back up again, and still has the ball at his feet after it. But no, not a penalty. Not even nearly a penalty. Not even close.
I mean, it's not even like we need to try and stat pad with Dylan Easton, because he's had enough penalties already this season to be doing really well. But yeah, Allan, do you think we were seeing the sort of benefits of Sean Byrne? Again, one thing that was picked up, I can't remember if it was on Pie and Bovril or Twitter that I spotted this, but basically Ayr fans were asking the question, it might even be on Facebook, but Ayr fans were asking the question of why they were getting their centre backs to take goal kicks. And the rationale behind it was to try and beat our high press. So it's obviously something that Scott Brown has picked up and sort of said, like, if we can do this, it effectively forces them to commit an extra man to try and stop. Even then, by having Sean Byrne on the pitch, we kind of negated that by having the likes of Matthews and Brown being able to bomb forward without any... They're like, okay, he's back there, he'll do that sort of thing. So for you, just Sean Byrne's impact in terms of the game, obviously, really being able to see that.
Yeah, first of all, shocking bit of slander from Blair there. It was an absolute stonewall. I don't know what you're talking about. No, but I think Byrne's impact is twofold. He does what Byrne does. He breaks up opponents' attacks. He gives that little bit of extra protection to the defence, which actually it gives someone like Jordan Doherty, who is really good on the ball. It gives him the opportunity to, if he's got the ball and there's a bit of space in front of him, he can actually come out with it. And Sean Byrne can almost slot in and fill that gap, and you're not losing anything there. But what the main thing you get from having Sean Byrne in the team is his midfield partner, whether it be Scott Brown, Ross Matthews, or on Saturday, both of them, I've got the freedom to get forward, which is where I think they're at their best, running, putting that high press in, really putting the other team under pressure, and just, Scott Brown, with a bit of luck, would be a guy who would get, between 5 and 10 goals a season, because he's got a cracking shot on him. He had a really good effort in the second half, which I feel like I'm turning into his fan club, was very well saved by David Mitchell. But you get that chance for him to get forward, which, to be fair, he does anyway. But he's not then leaving a big gap behind him to be exploited by the opposition, because you've got Byrne sitting there just saying, "Oh, you go, boys, I've got it." So it gives us so many more attacking options by having an extra defensive player in there, I think.
With that formation that we played as well on Saturday, I think I mentioned it last week in the pre-match, was that there's 3 teams in this division I think we have to change our game plan to. And Ayr was one of them, especially away from home. Now, the next question is going to be what it's going to be like against the other 2, St Johnstone and Ross County. If he's going to also go a similar route, maybe no target man and just going to try and press the hell out of them and try and force them into mistakes. but also go with that midfield three so that you've got the security of Byrne in the middle and allowing the other two to go and help McMullen and Easton with the pressing. But it's definitely something that's going to be intriguing to see going forward. But against teams like Arbroath at home or anybody like that, I don't think that's the team that you want to be seeing on a weekly basis. But again, it's horses for courses.
Yeah, I think that last point that you make there is very, very valid. You look at last week and it was like things going to the worst situation possible by losing an early goal, whereas this week it's the complete opposite, where we've scored after 30 seconds, everything's brilliant, Barry Robson's football's fantastic, and we're all completely on board with it. Blair, I think you were going to come in there just to make a point.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a couple of things actually. One is the point Allan makes about like a more defensive player and actually a more defensive lineup, and we were more attacking. There's an easy narrative, which is we went 1-0 up in the first 30 seconds and then shit-fested the game and held out for a win. And it's just not true. Yes, they had more possession of the ball, like, absolutely. But we had more shots on target. We hit the woodwork. Like, there was more kind of penetration in that sort of final third than what Ayr did. Ray made 3 arguably really good saves, but I mean, we're already at Dylan Easton hitting the post. You've got Mitchell making at least 2 really good saves. Like, it wasn't a game where, like I say, it could easily be a carbon copy of last week. Team goes 1-0 up early, sets out defensively to hold on to the win, and just basically breaks up play and frustrates. And it just wasn't the case. I don't think it was a swashbuckling all attack from us. It was regimented and it was well thought out, but it wasn't, like as Allan says, it was a more defensive lineup with a more defensive player, but actually led to us being probably a bit more attacking than we were the week before. The other point I was going to make just really quickly, but that Scott was talking about, and that changing the style for different teams and stuff is really, again, where I think Robson doesn't get enough credit. There's all this stuff about he needs to play Byrne, he needs to play Byrne, he needs to play Byrne. I like the idea, and maybe I'm wrong, but I like the idea that he's got in his head, right, there are times when I will use Scott Byrne. Sean Byrne, Scott Byrne, I've done it already. I'll use Sean Byrne.
Is running about in the middle of the pitch.
Popped up a few times.
Every time I say his name, I want to say Scott Byrne. I'm saying Scott Brown now. But it's like there are times that he'll use him. It's almost like he's got a playbook. Do you know what I mean? And it's like there are certain players for certain jobs and certain systems. Yes, it might still be 3 at the back, and yes, it might still be relatively the same shape. But it doesn't feel, for all this, he doesn't change anything, and he doesn't make substitutions and stuff. I think he's answered quite a lot of those critics in the last couple of weeks. He is making substitutions and he is changing his system. He's just not always going to play the players you want him to play when you want him to play them.
Well,
speaking of name them.
Well, that's very true. Speaking of making changes, Scott, were you quite surprised to see Ayr come out in the second half unchanged, given their first half performance? I know that we touched upon the players that they had on the bench before. Certainly the comments from Ayr TV was suggesting that they were a bit surprised on that front. What did you make of their decision, Scott Brown's decision to sort of stick on the basis that he'd set up the team in the first half?
Yeah, I was a wee bit surprised they didn't make at least one change out of that, because obviously you had the likes of Main and Thomas on the bench that you could have turned to. I had said to my mate Matt at half time, I was like, who would you bring on? And he straight away was just saying Dom Thomas. And yeah. I think the narrative was that Ethan Walker was doing nothing for them, basically. So he was like, I'd bring on... And Walker seemed to be playing sort of in the role or the position that Thomas would have played anyway. So I think he was pretty much saying he would have taken Walker off at half-time and replaced him with Dom Thomas, and straight away you're probably then going to get somebody that's going to get on the ball, going to want to drive forward, put crosses in the box, take shots. And I mean, it was that sort of day with the conditions that I think any sort of long-range effort was going to trouble a goalie. So yeah. Dom Thomas is your man, I think, for Ayr anyway, for that sort of game. But yeah, I was a wee bit surprised, but at the end of the day, it was only still 1-0. It wasn't like there were 2 or 3 down and it was like, have to change everything. But yeah, Yeah, you could have also seen that they maybe would have wanted to change up somebody in the midfield, because obviously, I think Blair mentioned already, they had the two young lads on loan for Celtic chucked in there, and they weren't really settling into the game that well. And by now, you're 45 minutes into the game, and you're kind of going, well, we need to stamp our authority in the game, and they weren't doing that. So, unless he just went through them at half time, just went, go and sort it now.
Yeah, I mean, Ethan Walker, you mentioned him there. He seems to be a bit of an enigma. I don't really know too much about him in terms of his play style and what he's like. He did have a free header, like relatively early in the sort of second half after the main chance, Blair, which Dylan Walker strike rebounds out, saved by Josh Ray, and then Josh Oakley on the rebound. Just talk us through that. How much confidence do you think Josh Ray is going to take from that, given I know that he's came into a bit of criticism at the start of the season. Barry Robson stuck with him. He's stayed faithful to him. What did you make of Josh Ray's performance?
I thought he was really good. He's I think Josh is a funny one. Like, I really like him, but he's not... I don't think he's as good... This is going to sound terrible. I don't think he's as good a shot stopper as what like Big Kev was, or maybe even a Dave McGurn or whatever. But he clearly brings something to the team that isn't just saves. Like, and we talked about that already, the difference that he made last season when he came in. There's a kind of calmness and a reliability about him. It was actually, when at first, the shot that he saved and then the rebound, I was kind of the opinion, I was like, oh, maybe he should have like palmed it away and he wouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. But actually, when you see it again, it's a really good save, actually, to be fair. He does well to kind of get anything to it, like, and actually pushing it around, great if you can, but actually he did well enough to kind of stop it. And then it's one of those, it was almost Peter Schmeichel-esque. It was like, make yourself big, like just go as big as you can. And Oakley just basically blasts it right back at him. And it's one of them, if his arm's 6 inches higher or 6 inches lower, it goes in. But it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? And you can take from it as much as you want, but I think for Josh, it's got to be. I always think it's one of them. It's like saving a penalty, or do you know what I mean? It's a big thing, a double save. It's a big thing for a goalie, I think, and it is one of those kind of really kind of G yourself up moments. I thought he was really good. Like, he was just really calm, really assured. He got a really short back pass for Lewis Stevenson in the first half. And George Oakley's barrowing down on him, and he just dealt with it.
Yeah,
just no bother, no panic. Do you know what I mean? Stevenson's apologising, and Josh Ray's like, "Don't worry about it, it's done." Like, and that calmness, I think, is what he brings more than anything else. And I don't think you can underestimate how important that is for that team.
Exactly, good point you make there. Actually, that they don't. You didn't see them all screaming at each other and stuff like that. They just kind of get on with it, and he's calm there. Whether it's he's able to receive a pass and kind of pass it around, or he can boot it. You can contrast that with when Scott Brown has his shot in the second half that Mitchell's screaming at the defence,
Mental.
and then Dylan Wattrick was on the post waiting for the corner, and he's having a massive go at Mitchell, and I'm thinking, what's he going to go at him for? He saved it. He's not made any. So there just doesn't seem. There seems to be something a bit no right there, and completely opposite in our team, that they just all seem on the same page, and it's great to see.
Which is also the complete opposite, by the way, when Kevin Dabrowski was in goals, because it was constantly, oh, that should have been you, or that should have been you. It was constantly arguing whether it was the midfielder, the defence, or Kev. And I think that's instantly what it was last season, was either the communication or just the calmness of Josh Ray was the difference, because I do agree that Kevin Dabrowski is probably a better shot stopper than Josh Ray. And I think even that first one that he does save in the double save, I think Kev puts out for a throw-in with how he always is pushing it so far away.
Yeah.
But I do think that and I'm so glad that Josh Ray had the game that he had, and you could see it at full time, what it meant to him as well. Because I think he even felt like he was under a bit of pressure coming in to the league season, because he didn't have the greatest time in the Premier Sports Cup games. But at the end of the day, like, they're also still pre-season technically, and he's probably just dusting off the cobwebs. Even I think there was a a rumour going around that he slightly injured coming into the season with a wrist or
Yeah, he had a wrist injury.
so like he maybe wasn't even 100% fit in them games as well. So you never know, but I'm glad that he had that game because it's going to get people off his back a bit as well.
Yeah, I think that the psychological aspect of things, like it's probably easy as fans to like comment on stuff and talk about performances and the way that it impacts us. But again, as we've never played the game, we never really understand how much stuff like that maybe impacts on a player. So it might be for one player it's completely irrelevant, but then for a second player that is a really, really important thing and it is a big factor. I think maybe with Kev you probably could see that and sort of like measure it in terms of performances. But yeah, with Josh Ray, just fits into that defence. I mean, you've got the experience of both Hanlon and Fordyce in there that we've spoken about so often. Jordan Doherty's just as cool as a breeze. I mean, obviously a little bit younger than the both of them, but he just fits in so naturally in there. Ayr United, they do make their changes. They bring on Curtis Bain for Ethan Walker. Dom Thomas comes on for Jude Bonner, I think it is. But then on 66 minutes, right after that change, Ross Matthews dispossesses Dylan Watrett, bodies Mark McKenzie in the middle of the park, gets the ball to Paul McMullen. He trips up, but then Dicko can't figure out where the ball actually is. The Scott Brown chance, maybe one of the best ones in the second half there for you, Alan. What did you make of it?
It was, and he hit it really well, to be fair. It was really kind of low, powerful. It was just sneaking inside the post, and fair play to him. Mitchell gets across well, kind of gets a good kind of wrist, a good hand to it, puts it out for a corner. That's exactly what you're looking for your keeper to do. I might have actually shouted to him, I didn't think you had that in you, Mitchell, but he probably didn't hear me because of the aforementioned drum. But it was a really good chance. Not one of those that you necessarily think, we've passed one up there, because Brown hit it really well. There wasn't a better ball for him or anything. He's given it a good whack, and fair play, the keepers got behind it and made a good save.
And a very Ian Latto-esque moment coming up, because right after that we go into a double sub. So Paul McMullen comes off, he's replaced by Richard Chin, and Dylan Easton comes off to be replaced by Jack Hamilton. Now, as Paul McMullen is coming off, the co-commentator is made aware of this on Ayr United TV, and he just says good in a very Ian Latto-esque sign of appreciation of the damage that Paul McMullen had done. I felt that he ran himself into the ground. A really, really positive performance from him, just causing absolute carnage in that Ayr backline. A lot of the time they didn't know how to handle is just the sheer running power. And again, Jack Hamilton offering a bit more of a focal point up top. Dylan Easton gets his goal and hits the bar. You really can't ask much more than that from being put into that formation that we've never played before. Scott, what did you make of it?
Easton had no idea he was going off. He was standing there watching for the ball kicking out, and it was the Ayr United defender. I can't remember. I think McAllister's going to him. Like, it's you're going off. Dylan's going.
I think that's generous, Alan. I think he knew exactly what was happening and was playing silly buggers for time.
He doesn't recognise McAllister because he mistook him for Peter Parker. That's what happened.
I'm just going to say really quickly, see the Don Thomas thing. I was having a wee think about this earlier on, and it's like the juxtaposition between him and McMullen now. I mean, I don't know, there can't be much age difference between them. What age is Dom Thomas? He 30?
I think Dom Thomas is maybe a couple of years younger. I'm sorry if I get this wrong for any of the McMullen clan that are listening.
Thomas must be
older, is he? I know they're the same age. They're both 29.
Oh, really?
They're both 29. And the running that McMullen offers you versus what Dom Thomas is. But I wonder if... I mean, Dom Thomas left Queen's Park. So he did a pre-season with Queen's Park. He played until January. He went to Derry. He played all the way through the summer and then has come to Ayr. He's basically not had a break since last summer. I mean, I know he's not necessarily played every game or whatever, but we often talk about players coming in late and not having had a pre-season. I wonder if this is actually much the other way, whereas McMullen, obviously having been there a year longer, he'll have had his pre-season, last kind of winter, effectively, played through the summer with Derry, and then has come to us. And I just wonder if that's the kind of difference with why Thomas is not... I mean, he played the first half pretty much against Arbroath and then came on kind of late, but he was anonymous. I don't remember him doing anything.
What did you make of the change from Rovers, Blair? Because we've sort of said, like, it's really an attacking intent in terms of the three subs that we did make. So what did you make of that from Barry Robson being quite bold?
I think it wasn't just bold, it was clever, because it would already, the Scott Brown chance was the kind of the beginning of it, really, but we'd had 2 or 3 chances. They were clearly pushing to try and get a goal. And the more they push on, the more chance you've got of catching them on the break. And who better to be catching somebody on the break than Richard Chin? I mean, the boy's an absolute whipper. And you see that in the one where he kind of beats Liam Dick. And a bit more composure, he scores. Or even if he'd taken another couple of touches, he'd probably got pulled down and Dick would have got sent off. But I just thought it was really, really clever. He gave us a focal point in Hamilton, because they didn't have the big towering centre halves. You know, they had Dick and McAllister at centre half.
They had 4 wing backs, fullbacks.
Basically 4 fullbacks. You've got a big tall striker in there, winning headers, bodying folk, kind of putting himself about, and then you've got Richard Chin just running at 300 mile an hour all over the pitch. I thought it was again 2 very well timed and well thought out substitutions for Robson.
Yeah, I really think that we did reduce Ayr to sort of high balls at that point. And to be honest, a lot of the time we were winning the ball far up the pitch. It was their final third that we were getting it. And it just felt like it became sort of relentless, that their fans grew very, very frustrated because it was just trying to find an outball, to whether it's going to Don Thomas or going up to George Oakley. They bring on Jake Hasty as well. He replaces Marco Roos. And there's just very little but scraps up until probably about the 90th minute for Ayr. They really don't do too much. Rovers then make their final sub. Kai Montague comes on for Scott Brown. And then the game kind of ignites in the 90th minute. Just firstly, talk us about the... Scott, if you can talk us through sort of Josh Ray saving that shot from Curtis Main, and then as well just the... we'll save the slide tackle just yet, because that comes a wee bit later on. But what did you make of that? Because it is a relatively good chance there for Curtis Main towards the end of the game that Josh Ray still has to deal with.
Aye, and to be fair to Curtis Main, I mean, he's taken it down well and then turned and hit it pretty well on his... I'm pretty sure he's right-footed, so it'll be his weak foot. So, and Josh Ray has to get down quick again to stop it, and it just... kind of backs up the point that we've been speaking about already, that it was a game that Josh Ray just seemed in command of what he was doing all the time and just seemed pretty chilled about it. Whereas I remember when you go back to the times when he was in goals for Ayrshire, and you would see him doing rash things and coming out like for balls that he shouldn't be coming out for, or being wildly out of position or anything like that. But for us, he seems to be, I don't know if it's just with experience that he's...
This better not happen in the derby next, Scott. That's set me off in terms of fear.
But he genuinely just, since he's came in February, he's completely changed the narrative that I had about him. Because I genuinely thought, I had that in the back of my head, like, because I think Duncan mentioned it quite early on after us signing I'm going, but Josh Ray's got that moment in him where he could come flying out and just take somebody out. I get that he did it to Ethan Ross in pre-season, but like... But
not justified.
We can condone that. Yeah,
I do think that it was just another really good save, and it was just one that when he saved that, I thought, right, well, I think we should be able to see this out now, because I thought any chance they had at that time was probably going to be their last sort of chance that they were going to get in the game, because by that point I think it was 89, 90 minutes on the clock, so you're kind of going, right, well, we must only have maximum 4 minutes, because there was nobody really went down with any injuries or anything like that. So you were just going, well, if he gets more than 5 minutes out of this, I don't know where he's getting it for. But I
mean, to give them credit, there was a period of about 10 minutes after they made the subs, sort of 65 to 75-ish. It looked like it was coming. Like, we were all in the stand going, this is coming, like, this is coming. And in my head, I'm thinking, if we concede 1, we're going to concede 2. Like, this is going to go. And it was just really impressed with the way we just stood up to it. Like Scott says, just calm and assured and just dealt with everything.
Yeah, it just I mean the subs definitely helped with that. But then previously, before, when you look at Rovers teams historically, we've probably gone to final 5-10 minutes of games, and we've been conceding those late goals. I know that we had it I mean, even last season we had it against Livingston, Morton at home, for example, losing goals that effectively lost us games. Yeah, well, even then, but I think that the main thing for me is that we've got players on that are an outlet now, particularly Richard Chin and Kai Montague, and nothing sums that up more than when Josh Ray put the ball right into the middle of the pitch. There's a potential for a Dylan Easton-esque moment. However, Allan, just talk us through the slide tackles that came next.
Oh, it's just brilliant. It's one of those. It's that kind of the noise. Like when it wasn't on the highlights, I was just like, "Oh, please tell me they've got it," because I'd be gutted if they haven't got it. And then Robbie asks for it, and we get it on. And it's the noise from the crowd with both tackles. It was just.
It was great.
It's the kind of that was the point where you thought, we're winning this now. There's not a chance they're beating this team. They're just not. We were. It's just brilliant. It's what you want to see. It's really what you want to see for guys coming off the bench as well. These are guys who are coming off saying, the manager's giving me my shot. I'm going to go in there and show him why I deserve it, and why I'm kind of banging his door down for a start. It's for all those who say, we need more players, our squad's not big enough. I get that Callum Smith's the only player currently injured. Louis Vaughan's obviously carrying a wee niggle, which is why he didn't come off the bench. But we had enough on the bench that we didn't need to bring Louis Vaughan off and risk hurting him, because we had options to come on and not necessarily change the game, because we still won 1-0, but to see the game out and to make those kind of tackles and put themselves about, and to even have, as kind of Blair kind of mentioned, to have the two different types, or maybe yourself, Robbie, apologies, different types of options coming off. You've got Jack Hamilton to go in there and kind of bully the attackers if it's a high ball, and then you've got Chin and Montague to just run at them and throw themselves in front of things. And Ayr just didn't really have an answer for it, and it was really, really encouraging to see.
Yeah, Kai Montague. We talk about these cooperation agreements, and I know that we've confirmed the one with Rangers tonight, but if you're talking about him going out on loan, I don't think anyone really wants that now.
No.
After the East Kilbride game, I was like, he needs a loan. Now I'm like, nah, he's staying. He's got to stay put.
Fair play to him, by the way, for his performances since that East Kilbride game.
Yeah. That first slide tackle for Richard Chin, I corrected Allan in the group chat because he put in that slide tackle for it. It was before the highlights. That slide tackle for Richard Chin, I'm like, that was Sean Byrne, was it? No, it was so good, so well timed, so hard. I just assumed it was Sean Byrne, and not only that, the reason I kind of was like, it couldn't have been, because by the time Montague flies into the second tackle, the ball breaks and it's Chin that's running away with it. So Chin's smashed the boy, got up, watched Montague smash the boy, and then runs away with the ball. It's tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
Just the determination there to get the ball forward. And as fans, you'll love it. It's great. You cannot ask for more than that.
It's like that Jack Hamilton moment for the Dundee United game, but actually legal.
Yeah. But it's like, well, as I was saying before, double saves get crowds going. Do you know what I mean? And they do, like, there was a roar after the double save. A double hard tackle in the middle of the park's just as good.
Channeling the spirit of his inner Mark Campbell by just bodying a player out of the way.
Tremendous.
A bit more pacey on the counter-attack than Sparky was.
Just
But if he becomes anywhere near as much of a legend as Mark Campbell does, then we will be very happy with that. Just to come back to yourself, Scott, obviously it goes to full time after Josh Mullen punts the ball out of the park, just quite delightfully. Has a little glance at the referee just to make sure, after chatting with him, that yes, it is full time. A very attritional win from Rovers. Was that quite pleasing to see that side of the game from them? We've won games by scoring 5 goals this season, with some very assured performances in the League Cup, but to be able to grind out a win at a place like Somerset Park, you mentioned before, we went down there 3 times last season and lost. What did you make of that?
I thought it genuinely epitomised a Barry Robson team, and I think he said that in his interview as well. He's like, that's the team that I want to see week in, week out. I mean, everybody played their part, everybody worked their ass off, and like, I don't think you could have really asked anything more from any of the guys that were on that pitch. I mean, we used 14 players. Any of the 14, I know that Montague only got a couple of minutes, but everyone else all played their part and played it brilliantly. So I think it was also a different type of win, and you're going to have games like this. As I say, there is 3 teams in this division. I think we have to change our game plan for, whereas the other teams, it's going to be a case, especially when we're at home, that we're the team that are probably going to have more possession and need to break teams down. But going away to Somerset, where we've struggled quite a lot in recent seasons anyway, it's been good to get that win straight away, and also the fact keep a clean sheet, because I think I mentioned it in the group chat over the weekend that we hadn't kept a clean sheet since we last played Ayr at the start of April. We'd always conceded in every game since then, so it was like, well, we're kind of due one, or we need to get one to kind of sort of get the haters off, especially Josh Ray's back, as I said, because I know that he was coming in for a lot of stick coming into this game. So, no, I thought everybody was brilliant, and as I say, yeah, couldn't ask any more from any of them.
Yeah, I'm a sentiment that's basically shared across the Rovers fans. I think that it was a very, very reassuring performance, and there was a post from an Ayr fan on Pine Bovril earlier on. Now I know that there's probably a quite heavy section of our listenership that are probably rolling their eyes at the mention of Pine Bovril. I'm going to stick up for them, but they were sort of commenting about how this was a really, really poor performance, and even if George Oakley had scored, it would have papered over the cracks because this was a team that they were far superior compared to last season. But then they've completely neglected to mention that we took 6 points off them, which is the same as it was parity in the league, basically. But also as well, it doesn't really reflect on the fact that the tables have turned in terms of the injury pictures. Like at the start of last season, we had so many bodies missing, so many players coming back from injury, that really didn't help us in terms of where we were at. Whereas now, it very much feels like Ayr have regressed. And what did you make of to speak about the wider division, Blair? What do you make about the sort of pressure that's getting heaped onto not just Scott Brown, but also you look up at Ross County, you've got Don Cowie, they lose 1-0 to St Johnstone in the Friday night game. What do you make of that? That these early results and the influence that they can have in terms of the dynamics within the league?
I mean, it's probably too early to kind of chuck the toys out the pram too much. The league can change so much in a week or two, especially when there's so many draws in the league. But, I mean, I said the first podcast we did, I genuinely thought Ayr were going to challenge. I thought they'd signed really well, but they've got a lot of injuries, and as you say, they're missing some really key players. I mean, I watched the St Johnstone Ross County game on Friday night. So boring, man. It was awful. It was such a poor game. Like St Johnstone are going to win this league. I'll tell you that right now, because they're not going to make any mistakes. They just look like a team that they're going to basically do better than what Livingston did last year at what Livingston tried to do last year, which is just 1-0s. They're fine. Like they'll just get their way through the league. They just didn't look like they've got a mistake in them. But for all the possession they had in the first half, I switched on about, I don't even know, it was maybe 15, 20 minutes into the game, and there was a comment in the group chat. I think it was maybe Duncan had said, seeing Ross Laidlaw with grey hair made him feel really old. And I swear, I got to half time, I hadn't seen Ross Laidlaw. Like from that 15, 20 minutes on, he never touched the ball. So you get into the second half, and then all of a sudden, you know, Ross County kind of started to play out a little bit and stuff, but it was just a turgid game. It's a league where everybody can beat everybody. I mean, that game on Saturday, if Ayr had scored first, they probably would have went on and won it as well. Like, it is one of those kind of leagues where getting ahead early is important. Getting ahead is important. But it's we say it every week, and it's a cliche, but everybody can beat everybody. I don't think there's as much pressure on Scott Brown as people think there is. I think the board have backed him too much to bin him, and I don't see them binning him. I think this is going to sound bad, I don't know if he's too big to get binned. I don't know if he's too big a personality for them to get away with binning him.
I think he's also probably putting actually more pressure on himself than Ayr might be, because I said the other day, he has openly said that he's looked at other jobs or he spoke to other clubs whilst in this job, and I know for a fact that he's actually keen on going back down south because he feels that he didn't get a fair crack of the whip. So if there's a League Two club or a SPL club that are after him, I think he'll be keen to go and sort of check that out more than anything, but he'll be needing to make sure that he's doing sort of good enough at Ayr to be even considered for that, because at the end of the day, if he's down the bottom of the table, nobody's going to be looking at him.
It's also
a wee bit like Reece McCabe. The longer he's there, the less chance he's got of getting the next move. He probably needs to jump before it all goes tits up.
You've got to look at the two teams who are likely going to finish above Ayr this season as well. And look, St Johnstone have kept pretty much all of the players they would have wanted to have kept for last season, and they've recruited very well, and they've done that really sensible thing. The same thing Dundee United did. Fine. They've bought good Championship players. Dundee United did it by signing Docherty and Holt and guys like that for Thistle. They went out and signed good Championship players. St Johnstone have done that. They've got a very, very strong squad, and County are just throwing loads of money at it. So, to finish behind those two teams would not be a disgrace for anyone in this league, really.
No. I think that with County, with Don Cowie, it's just a matter of time. And it's just a question of when he's going to go. Just the way that they're set up, the way that he's invested the money into the team, and the structure that they've got, just for me, doesn't strike any confidence. It's basically John Robertson's waiting to take the hot seat there.
Oh, I hope so.
And I suspect that, and to be honest, I think John Robertson will do a better job when he inevitably gets it. I'm just a bit raging.
And the boy that was co-manager with Kettlewell was on the telly. He's still there as well.
Ferguson, he's COO or CEO or something like that now, so he's moved about, which is
a weird setup.
Weird move. But it's Ross County, they're just that type of club. Very community foundation, sort of very strange setup that a lot of it's locally based. I think Leslie's probably the best place to speak out of a lot of us in terms of matters, given his family ties in the area. Exactly. Whereas with Ayr, I think their fans, it's a very weird position for Ayr, because there's a lot to like about what they've achieved over the last year, and the way that they've gone about their business and who they've signed. They've obviously got Scott Brown in. He's done really well last season to sort of rebuild their image, and the whole sort of idea that they've got momentum behind them. They've got the big new stand, filling out the hospitality. But then you hear during the pre-match interview that they're only selling 1,300, 1,400 season tickets.
Weird.
And you're just a bit like, something seems a bit odd. I know that Rovers get memed on about pie sales, and but we've actually got the sort of, we've got the back in there.
I mean, there was 2,000 in there.
Yeah, 2,500, but 400 Rovers fans. So seems, there's something just a bit strange about it all, looking from the outside. But I'm sure Ayr fans would probably say otherwise. And I fully appreciate this could get bookmarked and chucked back at me within 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Bring it on.
I actually wonder if Mark Wilson's going to come under a bit of pressure pretty quickly for Thistle fans as well. In terms of managers under pressure in the Championship, because I don't think they were particularly excited by his appointment anyway.
Not at all.
And he kind of looks like his record at Thistle is going to be similar to his record in his previous jobs. But well, I get that it's only 2 games in. This is a long way to go.
They went up to Dingwall and they absolutely bodied Ross County in the League Cup. It was a proper pumping. And I think their fans got very, very caught up, understandably so. You go to a team that's spent a lot of money and you think, we're in a shot here, we're winning the league. And then I think the shine's maybe gone away from some of the players that they brought in. I don't know if you saw it, but the penalty that they got against Morton fans, understandably apoplectic with rage.
No wonder, man.
John Burns was a better shout.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. Yeah, you had Ali Crawford in his post-match interview saying it's just expected because we're Morton. Like there's some big conspiracy against Green at Morton, but
Siege
that's
mentality.
Siege mentality, and we know that's going to be the case.
It's funny, man. But yeah, it's like that whole, as you say, Thistle kind of got carried away, I think, and it's like they're now realising why the guy they signed for Forfar was that Forfar. He's maybe not quite the super, by all accounts, decent young player, might go on to have a great career, but not quite at the level they thought he was when they brought him in for Forfar.
Yeah, I mean, time's of course going to tell. I think 2 weeks into the season, you talk to any sort of player or manager and they'll tell you it's going to be a very, very long season and how players adapt to that.
I fully expect this to be clipped like the Harry Milne ones when the guy's scoring a winner for Celtic in the Champions League in a couple of years.
Tremendous fun. Tremendous fun. I really enjoyed seeing that back. Just like, as I said, if Harry Milne gets the same achievements in the game as Lewis Stevenson gets, then that's fine. But I know it was more aimed towards Duncan. But
nobody's bringing him in to coach it, train like a pro, is it?
Aye, well that's it. That's it. And the only other game to really talk about would be Dunfermline beating Airdrie 2-0, which sets us up quite nicely for the derby. Both teams unbeaten starts to the season, both teams on 4 points. The winner will, because it's a Friday night game, they will go top of the league if there is a winner, which for either team would obviously be a very, very positive aspect. But hopefully it's us, and we will come back to a pre-match preview for that next week. What I will say is that just before we go, make sure you get your predictions in, as ever.
No predictions because there's no game.
Of course, right enough. This has tripped me up. Scott's already, I was in the group chat saying, we're going to do it as a doubler, and then Scott's like, we've not even got a game this week, you two. What are you on about? Instead of that, I did actually record last night. I recorded a podcast with Liam Wilson, who is first team scout, recently did a charity walk, which was, I believe, 40 miles that he did in aid for Simpsons special care for babies. And yeah, effectively, really good to sit down with him, have a chat about sort of the scouting setup at Starks Park, how he ties in with the club, his track record in terms of where he's worked. Worked with some really interesting teams, very varied in terms of the job that he does. So I hope that people do enjoy that when that's released. That'll be released.
Yeah, really good. Listen, definitely worth it. I watched it this morning. Really, really good.
He watched a podcast. That's a bizarre one, Blair. It's you're a changed man. Post-match interviews.
It's only short as well. I know post-match and I watch. What was it? 35 minutes or something? I think it went up as.
You'll be watching other teams' podcasts, preview podcasts next.
Too far.
I did actually throw in a reference to Steve Clark, who does Jagalytics as well, which is he's one of the guys that appears on Draw Lose or Draw. A really good Twitter account to follow. But again, that's by the by. Any final thoughts on Saturday's game, lads? Just happy to see us off to a winning start after, as I said right at the top of the show, had to wait until darkest December before we got a win on the road last season.
But my only thought would be, it was great, and you know what? They take a bit of stick, but fair play to the young team. What a noise they made for the full 75 minutes they were actually in the stadium for when they got in there a bit late. But yeah, the atmosphere was incredible. I was there with my son for his 10th birthday and his 2 wee pals who were Hibs and Southampton fans before then. I think they might have been converted. They were right in with all the young team, absolutely loving it. It was a cracking atmosphere, really, really good. And it must have helped the players through. It must have.
Must have done. Just nothing stupid at the derby, boys. Nothing silly.
Yes.
That's a
no pyro on the pitch, no mentions of Norrie McCarthy, get all that to hell, just get behind your team.
Just behave.
Aye, it's no ideal. Well, I'll try and remember that we don't have a game this weekend. I'll not turn up at Starks Park on Friday night. But yeah, thank you for, as ever, to taking the time to listen and not hitting that unsubscribe button yet. We will be back very, very shortly. This is going to be a meme that I'm doing now, kicking the arse out of it. But yeah, thanks again for listening and bye for now.